Us in a Karakia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee members. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kīnekina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, ki aki ana te atakura, tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihe, mauri ora.
Thank you. Health and safety statement. This is a regular paper in these papers, so I'll assume everyone's read it. And apologies, we've got none, I understand. Confirmation of the agenda. I have. Thank you. Mover Chris, seconded Paul. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you very much. And an update on any disclosures of interest that's pertinent to the meeting. Not. Move on to matters arising. Sorry, I missed the confirmation of minutes. So, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paul. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Matters arising.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the running list of actions that we capture from previous meetings. As you can see, I think all of these have been either covered within the agenda in front of you today in terms of reports, or in the case of workshops around North Island weather events. One of those workshops has been held, with another one scheduled for tomorrow. The only matter that remains outstanding is probably in relation to the key projects activity update with the ORIS Next Gen project, making sure that we are reporting on our own status of our own implementation, planning and resourcing, as well as the sector-wide project or program that's underway as well. But happy to take any questions on matters that are contained in there.
Questions? Chris?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just one question, and I guess it's directed at Janine, and that's on reboot. Having read the report and the importance of reboot, me as a councillor and to the organisation, I just wonder whether we should be elevating this to a higher level of scrutiny. 6 monthly is sufficiently robust.
So through the chair, we do have that report next up on the agenda. I think, and Neville's in the room, who's obviously sponsoring the activity at the moment. I think there's a lot of work that's actually going in currently with, I guess, that culminating over the next 6 months. I think it's hard to see progress or traction within shorter timeframes than that. I think we will see evidence of more substantial shifts or benefits if we look at it on a more periodic basis, would be my sense. But Neville's probably the person to respond to that, maybe as part of that report.
Well, maybe we'll wait until we do the report.
Yeah.
Then I was going to wait, and I thought, well, just not happy about us addressing this every 6 months. High level of scrutiny. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions? Can I have a mover and seconded for the resolution, please, to receive the report? Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Which brings us on to the update realisation report. Welcome, Neville.
Kia ora koutou, and good morning. Just noting the comments of Councillor Hughes. Hopefully it's coming through clearly. More than amenable to the notion of doing more regular reporting, but also taking into account Janine's comments that there will be a bit of a tail on seeing the incremental benefit improvements coming through. However, do understand that that is in the committee's purview to have that and maintain oversight of the project with such a large scale investment, and you've got a deep interest in it. And as a sponsor of the implementation aspect of the project, I'm very keen to ensure that there's confidence in this committee about the work that we're undertaking and the progress that I believe we will be making, be able to demonstrate. That's helpful. I'll move on with the report. And just take the report as read. It's pretty self-explanatory. The contents, you had the benefit at the last risk and assurance meeting of the presentation on the IQANZ report, which I think provides a very objective and rigorous insight into the project up to that stage. Obviously, we're now in the implementation phase, and I think we're getting a good grip on the issues that are in the report, but noting some of them were, of a reasonable magnitude and will take a little bit of time to resolve. Some of the primary, I guess, focus areas and the actions that we're taking are quite practical and are around building the capacity and the capability of our staff to be able to use the system, but also to understand that the system itself brings with it new expectations and requirements on budget managers, contract managers and people managers to be able to work in a probably a more structured and disciplined fashion than they may have done previously under prior arrangements. And so there's a bit of a learning curve there for our people, and we're focused on that at the moment, and very, very significantly focused on it to ensure we get those benefits that we've talked about and referenced in the report. We have brought on a change manager, as the report states. She's actually online at the moment, just observing. Anna Campbell. Anna comes with a wealth of experience in change management and has helped us to get to a point to prioritise and identify the actions that need to be taken to be able to get the project, keep it on track. It's not off track, just keep it on track, and to get the benefits out of it that we've identified in the report. So the report itself talks about 36 benefits have now been identified. We've allocated benefit owners to each one of those benefits, and they are involved in ensuring that and giving us confidence that those benefits will be realised. The horizon is quite long, as you can see, and there was a loss of benefit realisation prior to project implementation, or recognition that we were going to forego around 8.6 million in benefits over the 10-year horizon. And that's highlighted in the IQANZ report, and it's accepted as that is what it is. So we feel that the benefits that are now identified, those 36 that are in here, a number of which are a small number of which are cash releasing, will occur, but there will be a fairly long horizon before we'll see those returns become obvious to us. Some practical things that we've observed that have happened that aren't as highlighted as strong as they could be in the report, because I only received the information quite recently, is the reduction in the number of tickets that is a significant matter. So that the tickets are where faults are identified in the system, and we have to correct them. So those have dropped significantly since June of this year. From the implementation point, I think the tickets are a proxy for are we getting greater control of the system? As a user experience becoming more conducive and more less of an issue, and so we're seeing that decline in tickets. We're seeing the relationship with the vendor is now well under control in relationship to what they own and what we take responsibility for, and what's part of their initial contract and what are related to any modifications or other things that we might undertake ourselves that are outside of the initial contract. So we've got control now, in my view, over those remedial actions, and we've got to focus on keeping those tickets down and resolving them as quickly as possible, settling the system down and training our people to ensure that they are competent and capable to use the system and get those benefits as quickly as possible. I think, that pragmatic approach is what's required for us to deliver the system's potential. And that's the approach we're taking. So that's a pretty high-level overview of that report and what the situation is. As I said earlier, more than happy to come back and report more frequently if that's the committee's desire, and also quite happy to take feedback on the way the report is presented and the type of information that you might prefer to see coming through. Thank you very much.
Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Neil, thanks for the report. It's a good report and it's got some very valuable information in there. What it does, though, to me, we're 12 months post releasing this project from the scrutiny list, and I don't see, we've identified $8.4 million worth of benefits which are not going to be realised. They've gone. As a councillor, we've got a responsibility. We've got 26 million, Janine will correct me if I'm not right. I'm invested in this, and I would have expected to see some real returns coming from it. And yes, the reports identify them, but it's always further down the track. And I know you take the easy runs first. Appreciate that's already been done. Like, we've added a business analyst, we've put a change manager in there, so we've added a couple of new staff members. I would really like to see some benefits starting to flow from that. So I guess just my limited exposure to the system, I think it's got some great information, but having spoken with people in the other directorates, there doesn't seem to be a lot of communication between the directorates in terms of how the system can be used. Now, in my experience, the financial people are the best people to drive that. They understand the system, they understand what's in there, and they have to use it. They don't have a choice. But others don't, and it's bringing those others on the same page so that they can see the benefits of it too, which I think is critically important. That be achieved as soon as possible. There are undoubted benefits to be gained from the system. I'm not criticising the system at all. It's just that how people are being onboarded to use it properly and efficiently, because that's the only way we're going to realise those savings that were intended. So I know it's a bit of a lecture, but
no, those are really insightful comments, and I believe I can respond to them in the majority of cases. So in regard to the communication to the organisation, we have a clear strategy around that, and that process is ongoing. So we are keeping regular cadence of communication up to the organisation, out to the organisation on the progress that we are making. And the other element of it, I think that's important, is that we've identified somewhere in the region of 120 key users of the system. So these are people with budget management, contract management, and people management responsibilities. And so we're focusing primarily on them to get the training and the insights that are required to be able to utilise the system to its fullest effect. There's a whole bunch of people in the organisation who do timesheets on a regular basis and some fairly low-level transactional things. So that's a broad exposure to the organisation, but there's around 120 people who use it in a very, the complexity of the system on a more regular basis. As you pointed out, the financial team are the ones who have the greatest knowledge and expertise, and who are the I guess the main service providers out to the organisation for the functionality that has more complexity around it. So they are involved in the design and the development of the training program that we're about to, our desire is to commence that in February, with a fairly large scale rollout of training to bring our people leaders and budget managers and contract managers up to the line, to the standard required to be able to use the system competently. The majority of that training will be designed and in many cases delivered by the financial team under Janine's leadership, with a bunch being delivered from out of the people and capability side, so that they have more of an understanding of how to use that part of the system, which is around the people management element. So it takes time, but the goal is to get it done as quickly as possible. And I'd like to draw a line in the sand and say that we're going to get this done by 1 July, but I haven't actually, apart from this now, said that publicly, because it is a challenge getting 120 people through that type of engagement and getting the outcome that we're seeking, that they're all up to speed, they're capable and competent, and they're able to do it on an ongoing sustainable basis. That is the foundation and the essence to getting the benefits out of this system, is that people know it, understand it, and can use it competently. So we have to invest in that, and we have to put time and effort into it, and that's what we're doing. And just in regard to our change management and business analyst type resources or training support that we've brought in, they are on a fixed term basis. We do recognise that that is an additional resource and cost. We're funding it out of the original Infor budget that was put aside for remediation purposes. And we do understand it's a constrained and capped budget, and we are using it as wisely as we can to get the biggest bang for our buck out of it. Our goal is to get people to the level of expectation as quickly as possible, settle the system down, and then it's business as usual, and the benefits will start to be realised accordingly. So that's the ambition. And like I said, I ideally want to see that by July 1 of next year. Yeah.
Thanks, Neville.
Yeah, could I maybe just respond to the comment around the 8.5 million of lost benefits that was reported in the IQANZ report? Because I think this is an important message for us all to be clear on and carrying. The IQANZ statement was based on the original 10-year timeframe of the project, and through various iterations, extensions of delivery of the project, we never changed that timeframe reference. And so it was within that window from 2018-19, 10 years from there, that that benefit was lost. It was not that the system wouldn't deliver it, but we needed to acknowledge the project had taken longer to deliver than we had originally anticipated. So that cash releasing benefit, which was really around our asset management system and practices, should still be expected to be delivered. It's just that the time frame has shifted out. I think it's important to go, it was lost when we looked at that fixed 10-year period, but there's no intention, I guess, in terms of the functionality of the system that is lost completely.
Councillor Nicol.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Yes? Or is it too quiet? It looks like you're looking at Jess to sort out the...
I'm online and can hear you okay, Jennifer?
Great, it might be in the room that they're not hearing me.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks, Anna.
Move on.
Paul. Yeah, so I support the comments about capability building, because that's the only way to benefit sounds. So, right thing to be doing. Sounds good. So, are you saying that some of the cash return from this is coming out of the asset management plan? That we can have a more nuanced approach to AMPs and spend money on a condition basis rather than perhaps on a more simple basis that we may have used previously, because of better data, better information, better capture of things. Is that where we're getting some of the cash back?
Yeah. Happy.
Yeah.
Yes, so through the chair, the original business case saw a shift from reactive maintenance to proactive maintenance. So all of that condition assessment work, better asset data, being able to move into some more strategic asset management practices through better tools. And so that was the area that it was particularly around the cash releasing that the savings were particularly highlighted. And I think that was based on a percentage of the spend at the time that we were doing that work. There were other gains in terms of the way that we do procurement. better analytics and insight in that space, that we can, reduce our spend by being smarter in that space. But predominantly it was in relation to our asset management.
Cool. So I've been involved with a few projects in the past, and where we, people turn up at the beginning and say, we're going to reduce some headcount because we've got this new view system. And then sort of several years later, you've got the whole thing rolled in and you haven't reduced any headcount, because what's happened in reality is that you've provided more capability and people got busier because there's suddenly more demands on everyone to do stuff. It's just kind of what happens. So I'm not kind of surprised that you haven't got the headcount. So being around electricity assets, measuring the saving is tricky and quite, so it is real. It does happen. I've been in 2 networks where we've run this type of process and we've got material long-term savings because we can manage the assets in a more nuanced way. But measuring it gets interesting because, of course, tomorrow something new demand to spend some money comes up, so the total spend actually doesn't change. That's kind of the way life runs. So yeah, but if you can try and create some measure based on a past plan, or I don't know, it's interesting. But yeah, these things are real. It's just very hard to pin down.
So we have had the reliability engineer from ICM present here in terms of that different condition-based inspection and the savings that they're actually able to generate off that. Now that's a combination of both that new capability in the organisation, which was advocated for by this committee, as well as the tools to actually support that work being done. But I think that was looking at, in the order of $500,000 a year off the bat of, cost avoidance. So can it solely be attributed to the project? Probably not, because it is a capability shift as well. But it is the type of activity that is now supported by the technologies that we have in place.
There's 2 things. One is that so June 29 is clearly the date that you can't be wrong on. So at some point you might come back with the date you'll be right on, which is a bit shorter than June 29. Is that right?
Yeah. So as I've said at the beginning, our goal is to build our capability so we can do this faster. That dates that have been identified in the benefits report are the safest dates that we can put a finger on at the moment to say by that point these benefits will be materialised. But they could happen sooner, and they could happen incrementally along the way. And so it's what we report back on at those points along the way. And I'm reasonably confident that we can show really strong progress if we do the things that I've just talked about in terms of that foundation laying, that we can show really strong progress and hopefully exceed expectations as well. There's a lot of things in this kit that are amazing and we don't fully understand them and we have not unlocked them. And every day we learn a little bit more about the capability of the system. And I think there's benefits that are going to come from some of that unlocking and understanding that we haven't identified yet that will, I would like to be able to come and surprise you in the future to say, this is what we've now discovered and this is what it means. Things that may not seem that meaningful, but in the people space around, hire to retire, that sort of whole process that's now embedded in the technology that will make it faster and easier for us to do that, but we don't fully understand it yet. We just haven't had time to turn our heads to it and unlock the opportunities that sit in there. The data analytics that sit within the system, our understanding of how we forecast and budget and measure across all fronts, be it financial, be it across people and across process. We just haven't fully understood that. And that was not fully understood, I don't think, at the time we brought the system on board. I think people thought the potential was there, but we didn't understand specifically where those opportunities might lie. We will start to get a better grip on that as we get more knowledgeable and more competent with the system we've got our hands on.
Yes, so once you've got the tools, the whole organisation has to learn new skills anyway. So that's back to this capability building is the key. If you don't do that, then it's a waste of time.
Yes.
Yeah. In terms of the report and Chris's comment, this is a very detailed report. I think it's been very good for members to understand, the nuances of exactly what you're doing. If you're going to come back to this committee more regularly, I reckon a simple dashboard would be enough. I don't think the overhead of producing this would be justified to do it, but certainly, Chris, to have some dashboard to sort of highlight what's been done on these things rather than the whole 9-yard schedule would be a good idea.
Just through the chair, accept that and recognise that we can present that information in a more succinct way. The intention here was almost to provide a baseline for committee's awareness and understanding that these are the things and this is how they're being assessed and when that probability of delivery will occur. But I absolutely agree. Provide the next reports will be more succinct and hopefully a little bit more pictorial so that we can see what's happening from a dashboard perspective.
Can I just ask, I understand we're having some technical problems with people that are online. Could someone other than Jennifer try to speak just so that we can find out whether the problems are localised or systemic? Don't be shy.
Maybe if you ask Anna.
Kia ora koutou. Can you hear me?
Who indicated she
Sorry.
was talking.
Yeah, I'm talking. Can anyone hear? No. Can you hear me, Jennifer?
I can hear you, Anna. It's
Yeah.
definitely an issue within the room, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes,
Sounds like
yeah.
it's just the room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frequency of reporting back to this committee that is sought. So is it one more time or is it 3 more times, effectively through to the end of the traineum, and also reflecting on, I think, the information that comes back in a shorter form. I think it's that clarity around the frequency of reporting that the committee would like to see on this endeavour.
Warren.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, probably Janine, just around the cancelled benefits and noting the work around payroll systems. So are we looking then to invest in a new payroll system? Is that what that comment means?
Yes,
does
so
it
through the chair, a review of our payroll system was within the original scope of the project. Infor don't provide a New Zealand payroll solution, so it was removed from scope for that. But we have held the budget for that, and that'll be a piece of work that we'll look at next year.
So there'll be no more budget requirements
No,
coming to
that's
us
right.
on that
Yep.
piece of it.
Correct.
And also just, I know something that's been raised in the past, but around contractor invoicing and payments and stuff like that within the system, is there any issues anywhere that you're aware of? No.
Through the chair, no. I know there was, we did have a bit of a backlog of some invoices, but we've actually, again, one of the short-term injections of resources, we brought an additional resource in for 6 weeks, and that has all been cleared. So I'm not aware of any systemic or ongoing issues in that regard.
And something we're not going to get caught with again?
No, I think if the whole procurement process is followed from contract through to purchase order through to invoicing, then the system works beautifully. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris.
So yeah, if I can just go back to the point that Paul raised in terms of reporting back. Janine mentioned about the repairs project or the maintenance project, which we had presented to our finance committee, and it was an absolutely brilliant presentation. It gave a very good oversight of just what the benefits are, and I think that was also presented to the catchment group. I'd like to talk to Janine about this offline, because I think probably coming back to this group, six months time, July, it's probably not going to coincide with a meeting anyway, but I think it needs, I want more comfort that we are actually making some progress, and just how we know that's probably just my nature, because I want everything done yesterday. But I'd like to talk to Janine about it, to see if there is a different process that we can adopt so that we get some feedback, whether it's through finance and services or it's part of our major projects putting every month, just so that we can get. I need to think about it further and for Janine, but honestly, I'm not happy about just having a 6-monthly report. That doesn't tick the boxes for me.
So how do you want to handle this? What do you want?
Well, I think if I can talk to Janine, very happy with having a dashboard. I think that's great.
Mhm.
You know, we've got the foundation now with this report, which sets, you know, we know exactly what it is we're trying to target and measure, and the dashboard's fine in terms of communicating back. But I'm as a councillor, I want to make sure that we've got ongoing activity. We've got 2 new people there. I'd like to hear from them how they see things. I'd like to talk to somebody in the finance team, David maybe, have him come and present to us how they're working with the rest of the organisation as well, what they've done to change things, so that we know there's real change being made.
Through the chair, the other one I'm looking at Nev because he's holding the pen on this, but just thinking about some of those roadmap type opportunities that are identified in terms of the product moving forward as well. I think we've got this sort of short-term goal around capability build, but the fact that we have this new technology in place and that continues to evolve as well, of understanding what council has on a roadmap to be able to implement or pick up in terms of some of that functionality that says we continue to derive additional value from the investment that's made. That might be an interesting view to take on this as well.
Yeah, through the chair, I totally agree. It'll take us a little bit of time to develop that roadmap because, you know, as I said earlier, there's things in the box we don't fully understand. So it will probably be incrementally improved over time. But we'll endeavour to come back with a first cut of that at the next. When I'm in your hands about when you want to catch up again on this matter, and I'll certainly meet that timeline, and we'll focus on getting a roadmap in front of you at that point, along with the dashboard.
So, Chris, we're going to. You're comfortable that we don't need to modify the resolution? Just. And you'll have an offline discussion with Janine and.
No problem.
And then from there, work out what we need to do to address your concerns. Okay, right. So do we have a mover and seconder for the resolution to receive the? Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Warren. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just with the risk management activity update, Nev's the strategic risk owner for a couple of these areas, so I thought it might be good to keep him at the table to be able to talk to them as well. Can't run away just yet.
That's right.
Yes. And we'll move on to that report now. Who's going to lead us through this, Janine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll probably normally just pass to the Chief Executive for an update on his view on what's keeping him awake at night from a risk perspective, and then we can go through the risk deep dive strategic risks. It's not a therapy session, but yeah, it's a different type of counsellor.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, thanks. Look, the things that I keep an eye on are probably fairly standard, and you've heard it before, though there's one new one. So the geopolitical risk, you know, as recently as this morning, you wake up and find that stuff's going on in South Korea, and there's kind of instability, and all I look, and you know, with the US elections, what's going on in Europe, what's going on in the Middle East, and so on. All I'm looking for, how's it going to impact us, and is there something we need to see, and you know, supply chain type things, how those flow on and affect the New Zealand economy. Are interest rates going to be falling as fast as we think, or are they going to sort of take longer? Because it all affects our planning for what's around the corner. You know, annual plan workshop with councillors next week. A lot of this has a big influence on what the outcomes will be. So keeping an eye on that. I think the government reform program, the government has said there's a lot that's going to happen that's going to affect us. And some of it's not going quite as fast as we thought it would. So we're still in that sort of place of how much do we resource up for, how much do we prepare for, what sort of impact is it going to have on this organisation. For example, farm plan legislation, it was withdrawn. The government then has put some back in place just for Southland because it put them into a pickle. We'll have PC1 coming out of the courts anytime, and we've heard that for a number of years now, but you know, the latest I've heard, 3 months' time. All these things affect how we're working with our communities, how we're resourcing and we're deploying staff in the near future, whatever that means. Obviously, one of the big ones around the corner is the RM reform, resource management reform program, and that will have a big impact on us and our communities with what the government signalled. And again, I understand that some of it's going through cabinet at the moment. I understand that the freshwater NPS is papers due to go to cabinet. When it pops out the other side, and what pops out is the unknown bit. The other thing kind of which is on my mind, and Councillor Maher asked in a recent council meeting, is the prosecution of the Chief Executive of Ports of Auckland, in the sense that it is using the legislation of what the tool is enabling and holding those accountable at the top for their actions or inactions and the effort that's taken in the health and safety space, keeping staff safe at work. My view is that we have good systems in place in this council. However, we do have some activities which are inherently high risk. Some of where staff or our contractors are doing works, the likes of pump stations, the likes of copper dams, do have high risk around them. We have staff who work over water. We have staff who work in water, and these are high risk. I do believe we have good controls, but just that recent case has just heightened my interest and attention on it. Probably the comments I'd make.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, then the report moves into the two strategic risk deep dives that have been undertaken this quarter. So, first one being Strat 04, people capability, capacity and culture, and then Strat 06, information technology. So I'll just check in terms of Nev, did you want to talk to these or?
Just in terms of Strat 4, just like to highlight that we've had as the report states, a reasonable reduction in staff turnover down to 9.5%, and I think it's dropped even further since then, but those are not qualified results at this stage, so well below the benchmark of 15%, which I think is a positive indicator from a culture perspective. Our staff, to a reasonable degree at least, appear to be more content and happy as a result of the experiences here, and it's a bit of a broad indicator, but it is an indicator in its own right that I think meets that definition around the risk description that's under section 23 of Strat 4. The post-control consequences remained at a moderate level, which is good to see. It hasn't been elevated at all. And there is mention, as you can see in the report, about a number of central government initiatives that, as were referred to by the Chief Executive, that create a little bit of uncertainty at this time. They have a ripple effect into the culture of the organisation, but I think the organisation is resilient and there's no indication that it's responding in a particularly negative fashion to any of those pending reforms or indications that are coming from central government. Though some of those are yet to be fully felt and yet to be absolutely experienced yet. The report talks about what happens if you don't focus on the mitigations and what could result on that. So we do focus on these areas, particularly understanding the root causes. We do, as you're well aware, do deep dives through our regular OCI surveys and our ongoing pulse surveys, which happen every 6 months to try and understand what those causal factors are and how we might best address them. We do focus on trying to do the right thing all the time around leadership and providing security and certainty to our staff. I also wanted to highlight around the people strategy refresh, which is a key piece of work that's been ongoing now for a little while, and we've done we're a good way into it, and ELT are getting visibility of it now in a little bit more of a defined way. So that strategy is due to be finalised before the start of the next financial year. So by July 1, 2025, we'll have the new strategy out. I think we're doing a really good job of engaging. I know that I couldn't give you the exact number, though we did have the number given to us yesterday. I just don't have it in front of me, of staff that have been engaged and have participated in the process of developing that strategy. Understanding what's important from their perspective, what keeps them happy. It's fair to state, because it's come through quite strongly in a number of areas, that flexible working is certainly something that the staff value and they appreciate. But we do understand there's some tension in that, and we'll get that balance right as we work through that approach, the refreshed approach to that. Delivering training that helps them to be able to, particularly from a leadership development perspective, is highly valued. We're looking at refreshing that program of work at the moment. So that's more about how people work well with others, how they understand themselves and others, and communicate and influence effectively. But like I said earlier in the report around the Infor remediation approach, we are focusing on building core capability and competency at the moment, which will take probably the majority of our resource. So we will be coming back around with a refreshed leadership development program sometime towards the middle of next year. But we'll probably pause that, even though we understand it's a very effective and really highly valued piece of work that our staff get a lot of benefit from. We just can't do everything at once. We have a reference in the report as well to a Māori employment strategy. This is a piece of work we've been working on for some time, and its whole intention really is to try and bring, as best as possible, attract staff with a better and deeper understanding of kaupapa Māori into the organisation, to try and make a more equitable balance between the regional population and our staff ethnicity mix. With the understanding that our relationship and our partnership with our iwi Māori is a critical responsibility that we hold, both from a legislative perspective and through our JMAs and so forth, but also trying to get better partnership outcomes and co-benefits as a result of those partnerships into the future. So that is referred to in here. That's kind of a high-level summary of that area, that strategic risk area, Strat 4. I'm happy to take questions at this point, or move on to the next one, which is on information technology.
Any questions from the committee? No? We'll move on, thanks.
Okay, so the risk is described here as that we do not innovate and invest enough in information technology capabilities and solutions, and I think that aligns quite well with the Infor discussion we had earlier, and we have invested quite well, and we are trying to get the maximum benefit out of it, so that the business and our customers and our communities get the ongoing gains that we believe the system will help us to produce. The risk appetite has been slightly updated to reflect the current risk environment. And this committee gets regular reporting from the Chief Information Officer on things such as cyber risk. So it's not really going into that space to a great extent. More talking about things like the geopolitical risks that the Chief Executive referred to before. Those are real things. They do impact upon supply chains, and we can never predict to what extent and when. But we do know, for example, that with the COVID disruption and the supply chain hassles that came out of that we were just lucky that we got in before then and managed to hoover up a whole bunch of devices and distribute them to our staff so that they could operate effectively and remotely through that period of crisis. However, should another event of a similar nature, or a geopolitical event occur that results in a disruption, that could have a risk for us in respect to our vulnerabilities. But we are maintaining a medium risk appetite in this area all the same. There is a overdependence. There's a risk around AI and potentially an overdependence by staff on using AI for a broad range of purposes. We encourage it. We have a focus on ensuring that we understand AI and its capabilities. We have a team formed that is specifically investigating AI potential capabilities and risk, and establishing all those things such as guidance and guardrails to ensure that the organisation is able to benefit from those tools without going off the rails and getting us into a risky space. And this is an emergent area. It's an area of opportunity, but an area of increasing risk. And so we're staying within those guardrails as much as possible to ensure that we minimise that risk, but also exploit the opportunities. The data strategy is another big area of investment for us, and the council did invest at the last long-term plan in the creation of a fixed-term role to enable us to further explore and understand our data management pathway and our governance responsibilities and the potential that sits from that data space. It's early days. The person commenced in the role in October, and 2 months in, they're reporting to us tomorrow. But the view I have is that they're starting to get the realisation, understanding of the opportunities that we have in the data governance and data management space, but also understanding the complexities and the realisation that we have entered and emerged into this space as a result of a really evolutionary process. And as a consequence, we've got probably disparate data sets, and we're not maximising the opportunity yet. But it will be one of those things that will provide huge benefits for us into the future. We have the SAM compliance process around our cybersecurity framework, and that's an important piece of technology that we use, or system that we've got in place to ensure that we are meeting the industry relevant compliance standards, and that maturity assessment that's undertaken is giving us positive feedback, supported by regular testing of staff, and all users get tested regularly on their understanding and their ability to comply with the expectations around cybersecurity through their own use of devices. And again, that gets reported by the Chief Information Officer on a regular basis. We're also undertaking a lot of work in that IS space around the service improvement project. It's a priority for the team, and we'll have more visibility of what that looks like in the new year. The report is in front of you. I'm not going to go into too much further depth on it, but I'm happy to take questions.
Jennifer has submitted a question through on the chat, so you just read that out, please.
So Jennifer has a question for Neville. Do we know that the leadership programs we have people going through are actually making a difference to their behaviours at work, i.e. they are becoming better leaders? I have seen before that while people may attend a course, it may not always make an improvement. However, with some it does. But do we have a way to track the effectiveness of this investment?
Brilliant question, and one that was raised at ELT yesterday, and we discussed our focus on moving towards that foundational training, and there was a very strong sentiments expressed by quite a number of the executive team around the value that they perceive that comes from the leadership development program. So I think it's anecdotal largely. It's hard to get quantitative data apart from participation rates, and then reduction in grievances and issues that might come from staff as a result. But it is largely qualitative. It is anecdotal that staff are coming out as better leaders. We had one of the executive pointed to a staff member who came and presented to us yesterday, and how their level of confidence and ability had improved dramatically since going on this course. So we see it in individuals on a case by case basis, and we get anecdotal feedback to say, actually, the course is adding value and improving. Yeah, hard to give you some quantitative data on that, to be fair. However, we are undertaking a review of the program, and our expectation is that that review will be a deep dive and will show us what is the most beneficial approach to take. I believe that the program is based on the approach that we adopted a number of years ago, that was led by the Human Synergistics team. We adopted their program of work and have configured it for our own purposes as WRC, and have been delivering it in-house. So no longer do we contract it out; we deliver it ourselves. I think there's a update at CERC perhaps on how we do the OCI and so forth, which may or may not be relevant to the conversation around leadership development, the leadership development program. But I'm only raising it because the Human Synergistics program is what we're basing our leadership development program on. But it's timely for a review. We've been doing it for a number of years, and we'll have a few months to do that. Chris.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, and thanks, Neville. I think one observation we made, and I can't put a number on it, but the number of staff who have come through the program and have actually ended up being part of our team leaders, managers, part of the leadership in the organisation is evident. It's a much higher proportion than it used to be. And I think that's something where people have grown their skills and confidence by investing in them personally as leaders. That'd be one of the positive things that we've seen.
Any other questions? Well, can I have a mover and seconder? Sorry.
Could I just bring to the attention of the committee the change in the full page 52 of the agenda? So obviously we've got a separate report on this topic in the public excluded section, but we have noted there the change in the residual risk likelihood from unlikely to residual risk. To highlight that, I think that's probably a fairer reflection of the reality of the organisation, usually observations by staff through the fraud perception survey. So just wanted to highlight.
Yes, I think also the situation we are experiencing now in the economy certainly makes, I think, the risk on fraud far higher than it has been recently. We've got a question from
Are the number of performance improvement plans going on at any one time reported anywhere to council?
We're talking about employment relations matters, I'm assuming here, where we've got type of formal process underway. Not to my knowledge. We do review those numbers on a regular basis at ELT, at least once a month. We receive that information, and we have the specific details at a directorate level for directors to understand what are the issues and how prevalent are they. But as I understand, they're not reported here.
Through Mr. Chair, I don't think they're formed through council, although in CERC meetings, when the of people and capability presents information, often that's referred to in a general sense, not actively.
Right. If we have no further questions, we have a mover and seconder for the resolution. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. On to the legal compliance survey.
Good morning, Chair Clinic. So we're just going to present the Reports Action Plan update. The purpose of this report was to follow up on the request from the committee at the September meeting to provide an update on the overdue action plans that were reported there.
So,
Um,
Fiona, do you just want to move the microphone a little bit closer to
Sorry.
people online?
Is that better?
Yep, that's better.
Perfect. So just to remind you of what was reported last time at the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting in September, we had 87 overdue action plans that had been reduced down from 129. The reasons in the report, we've included the reasons for what the overdue relates to. So these are either action plans with past resolution dates or action plans that haven't been updated within 3 months. So the legal services team, Hannah, is with me, so has done a lot of work in resolving and looking into these. So as a result, we currently have 24 action plans in place. Of those, 9 are overdue. We've reduced, so great work on reducing them. The 3 main causes for the reduction was the majority of the plans were historic and had been resolved, but because staff had moved on and hadn't been reallocated, they hadn't been closed out in the system. Secondly, there was some that were incorrectly categorised as partial or non-compliance. So there's been some training and education with staff to understand what a partial or non-compliance action plan refers to. And thirdly, there was some multiple action plans created for the one risk. So those have been consolidated down to have one owner and therefore some efficiency and ownership for that action plan. So of the 24 action plans, 9 overdue. Of those, 1 is relating to a zero compliance, and that has been flagged as high risk as relates to the Soil Conservation and Rivers Control Act. This risk reflects the length of time that it's been open. It's been open since 2022, and we are waiting some additional information, working with staff to understand how we can do a full risk assessment and plan to resolve that. The other 8 that are currently overdue are considered low risk to the organisation. So overall ongoing ELT will continue to receive regular reporting on the overdues, and we will continue working with staff to resolve those ones that are still outstanding. But open to any questions, comments.
Any questions? I have one. Sorry. With the staff turnover that you have, are there regular refresher courses offered as to how to use the system?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, so as part of staff induction, there's a training area around comply with and their role and responsibility with that.
And we have another question from Jennifer.
Great work to bring the action plan tracking up to date. Really appreciate this tidy up. Considering its compliance, I prefer to see this report 6 monthly. Report can be shorter now, it's less action plans.
Yeah, thank you.
We have no.
So we do 6 monthly.
Yeah,
through the
we can do that
compliance.
6
So,
monthly. Yeah.
we report 6 monthly based on the compliance surveys that are undertaken. So this was an additional report, given the number of actions that were actually outstanding. So that's in line with the committee work program.
So given there are no further questions or comments, can we have a mover and seconder for the resolution to receive this report? Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Angela. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we move on to internal audit activity update.
Yep, so thank you, that's me again. So I'll take the report as read, just a couple of areas to note. The KPMG have completed the evaluation
for the Maori Engagement Maturity Assessment or the Co-Governance Treaty Settlement Process Review. So they will be here joining us to talk through any questions on that. The report has been included. It does show an overall maturity of level 3, which really shows that we have really strong foundations and understanding, so in capability across the organisation. And they have also indicated that we can achieve a maturity level of level 4 probably within the next 3 years, 3 to 4 years. Other points to note, the health and safety team have reviewed providers to perform the Safe Plus review. So this is planned for April 2025, and a proposal from the preferred provider impact has been provided for you, and with the recommendation to go ahead with this provider. As part of the project management framework work program, there was a discussion at the last committee meeting around the highest risk ratings, risk rated recommendations identified by KPMG. So there's some more information in this report around those recommendations and the timeframes. It's noted that with the resignation of the EPO lead, the contracted support has been engaged to ensure the program of work is continuing to progress. Those are the key points. So any questions, or have we got KPMG online ready to chat to us? Benita's there.
And Benita's online now. Oh, true.
Well, Neville's here, maybe.
Yeah, Benita's dropped out.
Through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I could suggest, I know, Dave, is it possible that if we take a quick break, you may be able to try and reboot the system, which would get our externals online? Oh.
I was going to try
I
and
was
do that
thinking
in
2 or 3 minutes.
No, I was going to try and do it during the break, and so, but yes, no. Well, that's disappointing. So I think that's all we can do until. So we'll maybe get this fixed during the break and KPMG return and speak to their paper, and then we'll finish consideration of this agenda item. This brings us to key project activity update. Greg. Welcome.
Morena Tato. Yes, I'll cover off our 2 ICM projects, the vessel and our SITF project. So starting with the vessel, replacement vessel project, and I'll just note in the covering report on page 124, the vessel project isn't green. It's certainly red, and you can see that in the accompanying project report that's been provided to you. So I'll just note that correction for the information of the committee. So going down to the project report itself on page 126 onwards. So just noting that the project is red and that we have had an extension to the time delays that we have previously reported to this committee, both in terms of the additional time that's been required for the fitting out of the vessel that was not anticipated by the contractor. But also we have had a more recently emerging issue with quality, which is being currently resolved at the moment. This is regarding some corrosion that was picked up during the blasting and painting stage. I am pleased to report to the committee that the remediation is currently underway. It's been agreed to with the contractor to meet the standards that are in the contract. Those standards are very black and white, and so that work is underway. It's been underway for about a week and expected to take 2 to 3 weeks. I'm expecting an update this week and also a better understanding for what the project delivery date will be. Currently anticipating that to be around about February to March next year at this stage, but I'll have that confirmed as soon as we complete this remediation process. So disappointing, but on the other hand, I'm quite heartened that it was picked up, given that we have some quite close scrutiny across this build on site, and that our contract is strong in terms of the standards that are required from our contractor.
So just a question, although the project overall is red, cost is still green.
Yep.
So are you confident that because normally when time goes out, excuse me, so does cost?
Yep. So the contract itself is a maximum price contract. There have been some variations, but none of them are going beyond the contingency that's provided. In fact, a majority of that contingency is still available, and that there's no indication of any cost issues. We do have liquidated damages provisions in our contract as well, and those are very strong.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Greg, the MB funding, is there any time limitations on that?
So MB funding has been closed off. So at the request of MB, we received all of the funding from them, and so we are completing this project independently now. So they've provided all of the funding that we had committed.
Okay, so we've got no risk in terms of the funding. Okay, thanks. Cheers.
There appear to be no further questions on that. Oh, sorry.
Refresh my memory. When are we expecting to have this vessel in the?
At this stage, the provisional date's been March 2025, but I'm waiting for a confirmed program. So what we're doing at the moment is waiting for this remediation to be undertaken, and we'll then plot out the next steps to complete the project.
How at risk is March, and to what extent?
I'll be able to give you a better indication once I get some further information through. This is the best guess from our project manager at this stage, but it will depend on what comes back from the shipbuilder. That does include sea trials as well. So there's a period of about a month, which is sea trials before we take formal delivery of the vessel.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. Sorry for the late light. Yeah, Greg, issues with the mooring block and that, and the berthage itself. Where are we sitting with that?
As I understand it, the mooring block design is being concluded now. There are no issues with it. I think those got resolved some time back. So it's just a matter of completing the work
and silting up of that area.
I haven't been advised of any particular issues, but it's certainly something that we would expect and would complete through normal maintenance of that mooring anyway. Yeah, it's certainly a very dynamic system, the Waikato River. So,
thank you.
Right. Greg, is the next issue?
Yes.
Item you also.
It is, yeah. So our sustainable infrastructure decision-making framework, this is our trial project for the Motu Karaka catchment. And so this update was put together probably some 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, from memory, in order to make this agenda. I guess what I acknowledge is that there have been some recent council discussions around this particular project, and that we have had to put on hold the assembling of our community advisory group, which is a critical component to the success of this project. We're currently going through a rebaselining of that project in terms of between now and the end of the financial year in terms of what we're going to achieve, and that information will be provided to the key project reference group and this committee in due course. Priority for the project is to get the trial concluded this financial year, and also set ourselves up for the 2027 long-term plan in terms of broader regional rollout. The team are currently working through that process at the moment.
Any questions? Iris, next gen.
Good, thank you.
Thank you,
That's not
Greg.
Morena Council.
think Dean King is on his way down, but in the absence of Dean being here, if there are particular questions, I should be able to cover most of them.
Questions from the committee? No.
So whilst I've got your attention, then things that have happened since the report last week, there were some demos. One of the things around Iris Next Gen is enabling staff to start to touch something, and so there were some demos last week which were well attended, which is really good to see. And over the last couple of days, there's been a road show where members from RHSL and Datacom, who are developing the product, have been in the building for the last couple of days, providing the opportunity to staff to do a little bit more of questioning, being inquisitive about how the product will work for their parts of the business, acknowledging that it's still 2 years plus since before the product will go live, but it's a very long change process. And so the sooner people get the opportunity to start looking at how the product will support their part of the business, the smoother that change process will work. We've had really, really good engagement from staff across the organisation. And so that's a really positive thing to see as people remain inquisitive about how this product can best support their work programs. So just a couple of little updates.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I do have to take this phone call, sorry.
Okay. So do we have a presenter regarding the policy program? Tracy, sorry, I didn't see you there. Welcome.
Just, oh, sorry, Graham, for the interruption. Do you want to move these reports as we go through?
No,
Or
do it one, I think.
But no need to. Thank you. Hey, it's the government. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take the report as read, and just a few things I'd like to highlight. As always, the government is ensuring that our policy remains an exciting space to work in. They've made some recent amendments as late as 22nd of October. So thankfully the amendments were through before writing the report. The key, two key components of those amendments was around government making sure that no regional council is going to notify their freshwater instrument before December 2025. Caused a bit of consternation for the council that was planning on doing it the day after the government inserted that into the legislation. So that was our colleagues at Otago Regional Council. We, with our project under instruction from our council in June, did a bit of a project reset, read the tea leaves, understood it doesn't make sense to plough on ahead when we've got potential changes in legislation, potential changes in national policy statement, and for a third of our region, the review of Te Ture Whaimana. So we need those parts of the road to splice together, which a lot is happening next year. We'd always anticipated having a draft document end of 2025, beginning of 2026, and that is really to enable everything to come into the slipstream together. So those amendments posed by government haven't had an impact. What our other colleague councils are finding is that amendments that they were going to make to freshwater planning documents to make them more user-friendly, they are unable to do so. So we have the Ministry for the Environment doing some thinking around, please don't notify something, but notify the things that will make things better. Don't know how you quite write that into legislation. We're also working with MFE officials so that we are aware, and there are non-disclosure agreements that have been signed as usual, but that we are aware and we know what's coming and what the timeline is for that. And that helps us not run too far ahead and unnecessarily spend money on work that may not be needed with our MPS 2025-2026. What we have heard from government is that it is complex. It will take a lot of thinking, and we're dialed into that. We're also just checking, no, Chris isn't here. We're also having conversations with some of our primary sector industry representatives. So these are the agglomeration of the landowners, such as our Dairy NZs, our Beef and Lambs, our Hort NZ, to talk about what does a good MPS look like to you. So as much as possible, get as much agreement so that we're not in a constant hamster wheel of rework once it's in. The good news is the project is going in the overall positive direction. If I look at what we've got there in terms of our traffic light, and significantly, we'd always identified that iwi consultation and iwi engagement was a challenge. We will be taking to council the end of this year, which is thankful, the formation of our co-governance committee. You've heard me talk about it for 3 years. It's taken us 3 years. We will hopefully form that up, take it to council for endorsement of the terms of reference. We've previously had a workshop with our councillors, but hopefully get that finalised so that we can get the co-governance committee, which is required by statute, up and running next year. We've also had some really positive feedback from our Five River iwi in terms of our joint management agreements that has really helped us make leaps and bounds in terms of our iwi engagement, what iwi want to engage on, the process that they'd like to engage, who they're expecting and where, and we're mapping that out for next year. So it's a positive story to end on after 2.5 years of trying. The budgets are there on page, I think it's page 142. So the project budget, and this is something that our councillors have been very clear on, that they are wanting investment in this to be commensurate with work that's going to be of value, not that's going to be changed in legislation. At the moment, we are 52% spent against what we'd projected to spend so far this year. Now, that is a direct correlation of slowing down a few procurement processes and really testing whether they are required. And also a key component of the project will be our economic analysis, and we wanted to put that through the right procurement process to get the right people to do the work. Unfortunately, they're not able to start until March, April next year. Now, it's a significant piece of work, irrespective of where national direction lands. We're going to need that economic analysis and the base information into that, and it does cost. Thank you.
Chris.
Thanks, Chair Graham. A couple of points, Tracy. First, which statute requires this co-governance committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that is the 5 or 6 statutes that effectively are the Waikato Waipa co-governance settlement bits of legislation for that formed up the part of the settlement for the River Iwi, and also more lately the Te Nihi Nui settlement. I think that was 2022. Is that? Yes. Yep. So legislation passed in 2011, 2014, 2000, and I'm going to say 17 for the Topol area, and yes, the 2022 legislation.
Thank you. So is that separate from the JMA contracts?
The joint management agreements, the JMA, are derivatives from that from that settlement legislation. So that is the parent legislation, and the JMAs are the implementation of that legislation.
I just find it astounding that we could have legislation passed in 2011 which relates to current requirements for co-governance. Just doesn't make sense. But thank you for controlling the expenditure down to 52%. That is encouraging.
To date.
No further questions? Absolutely, it sounds like it. Thank you, Tracy. Can I have a mover and seconder for the resolution to receive this report? Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. I'm now proposing that we take a break so the technical solution can be implemented. It's a bit early, but I think, well, we'll work on 10 minutes. And yeah. Oh, it may be longer.
You can do a few.
Isn't it? Yeah, when it works.